Who, other than Ea, can devise plans? It is Ea alone who knows every matter. Far from denying the charge, Enki launched one of the world's most eloquent defense summations, praising Enlil for his own wisdom, and suggesting that Enlil could not possibly be unreasoning a realist, Enki mixed denial with confession. It was not I who disclosed the secret of the gods, I merely let one man, an exceedingly wise one, perceive by his own wisdom what the gods' secret was. And if indeed this earthling is so wise, Enki suggested to Enlil, let's not ignore his abilities. Now then, take counsel in regard to him. All this, the Epic of Gilgamesh relates, was the secret of the gods that Utnapishtim told Gilgamesh. He then told Gilgamesh of the final event. Having been influenced by Enki's argument, Enlil thereupon went aboard the ship. Holding me by the hand, he took me aboard. He took my wife aboard, made her kneel by my side. Standing between us, he touched our foreheads, to bless us hitherto Utnapishtim has been but human, henceforth Utnapishtim, and his wife shall be unto us like gods. Utnapishtim shall reside in the faraway, at the mouth of the waters. And Utnapishtim concluded his story to Gilgamesh. After he was taken to reside in the faraway, Anu, and Enlil gave him life, like a god, elevated him to eternal life, like a god. But what happened to mankind in general? The biblical tale ends with an assertion that the deity then permitted and blessed mankind to be fruitful and multiply. Mesopotamian versions of the deluge story also end with verses that deal with mankind's procreation. The partly mutilated texts speak of the establishment of human categories. Let there be a third category among the humans. Let there be among the humans women who bear, and women who do not bear. There were apparently new guidelines for sexual intercourse regulations for the human race. Let the male to the young maiden. Let the young maiden. The young man to the young maiden. When the bed is laid, let the spouse and her husband lie together. Enlil was outmaneuvered. Mankind was saved and allowed to procreate. The gods opened up earth to man. When the gods fled from earth, what was this deluge whose raging waters swept over earth? Some explain the flood in terms of the annual inundations of the Tigris-Euphrates plain. One such inundation, it is surmised, must have been particularly severe. Fields and cities, men and beasts were swept away by the rising waters, and primitive peoples, seeing the event as a punishment by the gods, began to propagate the legend of the deluge. In one of his books, Excavations After, Sir Leonard Woolley relates how, in 1929, as the work on the Royal Cemetery at Her was drawing to a close, the workmen sank a small shaft at a nearby mound, digging through a mass of broken pottery and crumbled brick. 3 feet down, they reached the level of hard-packed mud, usually soil marking the point where civilization had started. But could the millennia of urban life have left only 3 feet of archaeological strata? Sir Leonard directed the workmen to dig farther. They went down another 3 feet, then another 5. They still brought up virgin soil mud with no traces of human habitation. But after digging through 11 feet of silted, dry mud, the workmen reached a stratum containing pieces of broken green pottery and flint instruments. An earlier civilization had been buried under 11 feet of mud. Sir Leonard jumped into the pit and examined the excavation. He called in his aides, seeking their opinions. No one had a plausible theory. Then Sir Leonard's wife remarked almost casually, "Well, of course, it's the flood." Other archaeological delegations to Mesopotamia, however, cast doubt on this marvelous intuition. The stratum of mud containing no traces of habitation did indicate flooding, but while the deposits of Ur and Al-Ubayyid suggested flooding sometime between 3500 and 4000 BC, a similar deposit uncovered later at Kish was estimated to have occurred circa 2800 BC. The same date, 2800 BC, was estimated for mud strata found at Erech and at Shur-Upak, the city of the Sumerian Noah. At Nineveh, excavators found, at a depth of some 60 feet, no less than 13 alternate strata of mud and riverine sand, dating from 4000 to 3000 BC. Most scholars, therefore, believe that what Willie found were traces of diverse local floodings, frequent occurrences in Mesopotamia, where occasional torrential rains, and the swelling of the two great rivers, and their frequent course changes caused such havoc. All the varying mud strata, scholars have concluded, were not the comprehensive calamity, the monumental, prehistoric event that the deluge must have been. The Old Testament is a masterpiece of literary brevity and precision. The words are always well chosen to convey precise meanings, the verses are to the point, their order is purposeful, their length is no more than is absolutely needed. It is noteworthy that the whole story from creation, to the expulsion of Adam and Eve, from the Garden of Eden is told in 80 verses. The complete record of Adam and his line, even one told separately for Cain and his line and Seth, Enosh, and their line, is managed in 58 verses. But the story of the Great Flood merited no less than 87 verses. It was, by any editorial standard, a major story. No mere local event, it was a catastrophe affecting the whole of Earth, the whole of mankind. The Mesopotamian texts clearly state that the four corners of the earth were affected. As such, it was a crucial point in the prehistory of Mesopotamia. There were the events and the cities, and the people, before the deluge, and the events and cities and people, after the deluge. There were all the deeds of the gods, and the kingship that they lowered from heaven, before the great flood, and the course of godly and human events, when kingship was lowered again to earth, after the great flood. It was the great time divider. Not only the comprehensive king lists, but also texts relating to individual kings, and their ancestries made mention of the deluge. 1. For example, pertaining to Ur-Ninurta, recalled the deluge as an event remote in time on that day, on that remote day, on that night, on that remote night, in that year, in that remote year, when the deluge had taken place. The Assyrian king Ashurbanipal, a patron of the sciences, who amassed a huge library of clay tablets in Nineveh, professed in one of his commemorative inscriptions that he had found, and was able to read stone inscriptions, from before the deluge. An Akkadian text dealing with names and their origins explains that it lists names of kings from after the deluge. A king was exalted, as of seed preserved from before the deluge. Various scientific texts quoted as their source the olden sages, from before the deluge. No, the deluge was no local occurrence or periodic inundation. It was by all counts an earth-shaking event of unparalleled magnitude, a catastrophe the likes of which neither man nor gods experienced before or since. The biblical and Mesopotamian texts that we have examined so far leave a few puzzles to be solved. What was the ordeal suffered by mankind, in respect to which Noah was named respite, with the hope that his birth signaled an end to the hardships? What was the secret the gods swore to keep, and of whose disclosure Enki was accused? Why was the launching of a space vehicle from Separ the signal to Utnapishtim, to enter and seal the ark? Where were the gods while the waters covered even the highest mountains? And why did they so cherish the roasted meat sacrifice offered by Noah/Utnapishtim? As we proceed to find the answers to these and other questions, we shall find that the deluge was not a premeditated punishment brought about by the gods at their exclusive will.